Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be sharing my favorite witchy and paranormal romances that are perfect for fall. Alright guys, it is officially September, which means it is time to break out the paranormal and witchy romances. So I actually discovered paranormal romances last year, and I had a fabulous time. So I picked out 10 different books that either feature paranormal creatures or witches or just have that overall eerie paranormal feel, and I am so excited to talk about them with you guys. Now, if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram and Goodreads, both linked down below. With all that out of the way, let's talk about these 10 paranormal books. So first up, we have Her Soul to Take by Harley LaRoux. So this is a dark paranormal romance. It also has a demon as a love interest and has all of those like creepy, eerie, paranormal vibes. So we are following Ray, and Ray is essentially described as Velma from Scooby-Doo, and she's obsessed with the supernatural and ghost hunting. So that is her passion in life, but she ends up having to move to this small town. And when she gets there, she starts to pique the interest of this cult. So this cult is all about sacrificing people in this town to this Cthulhu-type monster, and they use demons to kind of like get their human sacrifices. So this cult controls Leon, who is a demon. Now Leon becomes very fascinated with Ray, and when the cult tells Leon that he needs to go capture Ray to be sacrificed, he's not about it, and the story goes from there. It has some very spicy demon-human intimate moments that I was all about, and I just absolutely love this book, so highly, highly recommend. And piggybacking off that book, we have Her Soul for Revenge, which is the sequel to Her Soul to Take by Harley LaRoux. So this book has a similar feel but very different main character. So we are following Juniper, and Juniper, when she was a teenager, was set to be sacrificed by the same cult from the first book. However, she is able to escape. So she ends up being followed by Zane, who is another demon who's just very interested in her. And Zane offers Juniper a deal where if Juniper gives up her soul to Zane, meaning that she will essentially belong to Zane forever, that he will help her kill everyone in the cult. And Juniper's like, hell yeah, let's do it. And it's their story of taking down this cult together. It is also unbelievably spicy. I will say I liked the relationship in book 1 a little bit more than book 2. However, I liked the heroine in this book way more. She is just a complete badass and really is out for revenge. So highly recommend. Both books are perfect for fall. And next up, we have one of my absolute favorite werewolf series, Sanctum by Hannah McBride. So I think this is marketed as YA, however, there are some very adult topics, especially at the beginning of this first book, so viewer discretion advised. Like, it is super dark, there's a lot of like SA, and I'm pretty sure some of it actually happens on page. So we are following our main character, I forget her name, I'm gonna check right now, Sky. We are following Sky, and she is living in this werewolf pack where she is pretty much the bottom tier of the pack. Her mother is forced to like pleasure the other werewolves whenever they please, and she just has a horrible life. Now, the one good thing is that Sky isn't old enough to become one of these like members of the pack, so no one's really allowed to touch her. However, at the start of this book, the alpha of her pack makes a new rule where Sky is going to have to start doing essentially exactly what her mother does. So Sky and her mother decide that they are going to run away, and they seek sanctuary at the Blackwater pack. Now, the Blackwater pack is much more, it's just a better pack in general. Everyone kind of respects each other. However, there is still the older pack that is hunting Sky and her mother down, and the story goes from there. I will say this series gives you Twilight vibes in the best possible way. There is a romance between two werewolves. Sky ends up becoming romantically involved with the son of the alpha from the Blackwater pack, and it's pretty much them trying to survive, and I absolutely adore this series. I really have to read the last book in this series. I read the first two, but the third one, when I was reading this, the audiobook wasn't available, so I might do a reread of all of these books because I love the first two books so, so much. I was living for the romance, so highly, highly recommend. And next up is a spicy, witchy fantasy romance. We have The Coven by Harper Woods. So the sequel to this, The Cursed, recently released. We are following Willow, and Willow's mother was part of The Coven, which is this group of very powerful witches that are actually in skeletal form that rule over this university. Well, there were some very problematic things happening, so Willow's mother ends up running away and has Willow and Willow's brother in secret. So Willow's mother trains Willow to be a witch, but says she needs to really stay clear of the Coven, just all bad news. So unfortunately, Willow's mother ends up passing away, and when this happens, the Coven finds out that Willow exists, and they decide to send Gray to go and bring her back to the university. Now, Gray is a vessel, which is essentially like a witch-created vampire that has no soul and is controlled by the witches, and he's also the headmaster at this university. So Gray shows up and takes Willow back to the Coven, and it does have a student-teacher romance because Gray and Willow eventually do kind of have a relationship, so you have that whole taboo thing going on, but there's also elemental magic because all the different witches are very proficient in one form of elemental magic, and overall, I just thought this was a really spooky, good time, and once again, student-teacher trope, I live for that. And the ending of this book I did not see coming, and it was insane. So I cannot wait to read The Cursed and highly recommend picking this book up. And next up, we have Heathens by Nicole Fiorina. So this is another witchy paranormal romance, and it's by the same author that wrote the Stay With Me series, which is one of my absolute favorite contemporary romances. So I was so excited to pick this up, and I absolutely adored it. It has those like creepy, witchy, supernatural vibes, and is just the perfect witchy romance. So we were following Fallon, and when Fallon was a baby, her family took her away from the town that she was born into because of the weird superstitious things that were happening. Now, as Fallon has grown up, she's always been very interested in her hometown, and she's always received letters from her grandfather. Now, one day she gets a letter from her grandfather that says, "Please come and live with me. I'm in ailing health, and I need you to take care of me." So Fallon decides that she's going to go back to Weeping Hollow. Now, when she gets there, her grandfather says, "Hey, I never wrote you a letter and you need to leave right away." However, when she tries to leave, for some reason, she is unable to. So then Fallon ends up being interested in this guy that she keeps seeing who wears a mask that her grandfather and all of the townsfolk say that she needs to stay far away from because he is one of the Hollow Heathens, and the story goes from there. So it kind of has like a Romeo and Juliet feel, but also we have all of these witchy things occurring, and there's all of this lore, and it is so good. So highly recommend. I loved this book, and another book that is perfect for the fall. And next up is a paranormal rom-com. We have The Dead Romantics, and this is by Ashely Poston. So this was a really fun and kind of emotional read. We were following this girl who is a ghostwriter, and unfortunately her boyfriend ends up breaking up with her, and she no longer believes in love, which makes it very hard for her to ghostwrite these romances. And her editor and her end up having this big fight, and then she gets word that her father has passed away. So she ends up going to her hometown, and when she gets there, she gets to the place she grew up, and she's with her family when there's a knock on the door, and when she opens the door, it's the ghost of her editor, and he has no idea why he's there haunting her, and the story goes from there. So like I said, this is a fun read. There isn't a decent amount of humor, but it also deals with this girl trying to kind of cope with her father's passing and all that entails, and there is a romance. So this was a very fun book, and definitely check it out. Next up, we have Wolfsong by TJ Klune. So this is a werewolf romance, and it is my favorite shifter romance of all time. This story is absolutely beautiful, and it is so well written, and it's just an emotional, and it's amazing. I will never stop recommending this book. So the story is following Ox, and at the beginning of our story, Ox is described as being simple by the community, and his father ends up abandoning him and his mother and says that Ox is never going to amount to shit. So Ox has had a really tough upbringing. Now there are people in Ox's life that do really love him, his mother, and then Gordo, who is a guy that runs this like auto shop and ends up giving Ox a job. So Ox is like doing the best he can, and he's 16 years old, and he's walking home from work, and he runs into this 10-year-old boy, and this boy does not stop talking and is just absolutely enamored with Ox and asks Ox to come home with him to meet his family. So when Ox goes to meet his family, at first he's like, this family, they're a little strange, but it also has that family trope, and Ox's family, the kid's family really takes Ox in. So then Ox ends up finding out that this 10-year-old boy is actually a werewolf, and not only that, he is going to be the next alpha of his werewolf pack. And on top of all of this 10-year-old boy had not spoken for 2 years prior to seeing Ox on the street. So the story kind of goes from there. And like I said, it is just so good and so emotional. You will feel so connected to all of the characters. It also has that found family, and just it is amazing. So highly recommend. And next up, we have Gothikana by LaRoux. If you're a fan of Taboo student-teacher romances, but you also love paranormal romances, you will adore this book. It is super gothic, super creepy, but also has that like angst and that taboo romance that I really, really enjoy. So the story is following Corvinia, and at the start of her story, we learn that Corvina is considered an outcast by most of her peers because she's been taking care of her mother, who is suffering from a form of schizophrenia. Now, after the passing of her mother, Corvinia is kind of like adrift with really no desires or nothing she really wants to do with her life, and she ends up getting a letter from Blackmore University asking her to become a student there. So Corvina ends up agreeing. She goes to Blackmore University and is very surprised to find out that it is actually this very creepy, isolated Gothic mansion. So anyway, Corvina ends up becoming a student and is introduced to the ruler of Blackmore and essentially the principal, and that is Vlad. So Professor Vlad, who is completely off limits, ends up having a relationship with Corvina, and it is their story. Now, while all of this is going on, there are also very mysterious things afoot, and Corvina kind of has to discover or uncover the mystery of Blackmore University, and it is so good. So definitely, if you're looking for like a creepy paranormal romance, pick this book up. And last up, we have Bewitched by Laura Thalassa. So this is another witchy paranormal romance, and I really enjoyed it. We are following Celine, and this is set in modern day, and Celine is a witch. However, her powers come at a cost. So anytime Celine uses her powers, she also loses one of her memories. So Celine really wants to become a member of the Henbane Coven. However, the Henbane Coven is reluctant to accept her because she's eventually going to die and have no memories if she keeps using her powers. So they essentially tell her that if she goes on this mission into the wilderness and has a quest and succeeds in her quest, they will accept her, not expecting her to be able to do this. Well, Celine, being crazy stubborn, ends up doing this, and she goes to the wilderness where her plane almost is like taken down from the sky from this evil dark force. However, she's able to survive. However, by doing this, she has to use her powers, loses her memories. You guys get the gist. So anyway, now that she is stranded in the middle of this like Amazon wilderness, she starts hearing this creepy voice calling to her. And she decides to follow it for some reason. And this voice leads her to a casket, which she decides to open. And when she opens it, this really hunky sorcerer comes out and says, "Hey, you're my wife and you put me in here and I hate you." And the story kind of goes from there. I took some liberties with that explanation, but that's essentially what happens. And overall, I really enjoyed this, and I'm very excited to read the sequel when it comes out. Alright guys, those are some of my favorite witchy and paranormal romances. Please let me know down in the comments below if you've read any of the books I mentioned, and also if you have any witchy or paranormal recommendations. I said this already, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye!